Hey everybody, thanks for joining. Hey Brendan, let me pop you in. Okay, all right. Brendan's coming in. Hi everybody, excited to introduce Brendan North to you guys.
Hey, here
There he
we are.
is, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm well, I'm in New York City actually. I had to fly here on the red eye, so anyway.
There we go.
Yeah, it's a different setup than I usually do, but excited to introduce everybody to you today. This
Yeah.
is the Thinking of Art call series where I started this last year during COVID and introducing artists and creatives and architects, interior designers, etc. And so excited to introduce Brendan North to you, who's an LA-based photographer. And I know we initially were introduced through a mutual friend of mine, Sydney Sadik, who I hope is going
Yep.
to be on the call. And she was speaking very highly of your work. And then I started to look at it, and I was really moved, especially by the works from Beverly Hills. So can you talk about
Awesome.
your background a little bit and how you got started as a photographer?
Yeah, yeah. So I actually went to George Washington University with Sadie, and or Sydney Sadik, sorry.
Hey, Sydney.
um, there she is. Hi,
There
Sydney.
she is.
Um, so I went to GW, and I studied international affairs and environmental science there, and then as I sort of went through my college experience, Instagram became more and more of a prevalent factor in people's lives. And I
Hmm.
started taking photos of the monuments in DC, a lot of architectural photography, and started falling, head over heels for photography as an art form. And within a few months, I had basically decided that when I graduate, I'm going to move to Los Angeles and try to be a photographer. And I did just that about, I'd say, 2 weeks after graduating. I moved to Los Angeles completely and started pursuing photography. I was able to get a job as a set photographer for a show on the Food Network.
Okay,
That
cool.
was my first gig. So I was taking photos of food, and it was cool because I got to learn a lot from very experienced people in the film and TV industry, and that pushed me even further. Like, okay, I love this world. It's exciting. All these people are incredibly creative,
Right.
and eventually I was able to sort of build my Instagram following through different model shoots, working with, I mean, all of the incredible people that are living here in LA that are also trying to make it.
Yeah.
And what I found a ton of success in was the social media world. I became like the quintessential social media influencer photographer. So
Amazing.
I was taking photos of, any influencer you could name. And once I had a few of those under my belt, the next ones, would start reaching out like, hey, I saw you shot with, you know, my friend George Janko. I
Right.
shot with George. I loved those photos. Now I want you to shoot me. Um,
Yeah,
and
you
then
just got sucked up in this spiral, right? And
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah, well
amazing.
it's that big it's that social media snowball effect that,
Hmm.
we're all after. It sort of, keeps on rolling and getting bigger and bigger. And eventually I started working with one YouTuber named Logan Paul. Uh, Not sure if you're familiar.
I know of the work, yeah.
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 So he and I grew his vlog channel to, well, now he's at like 25 million subscribers. But when I started,
Amazing.
I think we went from like 1.5 million to 10 million subscribers.
Hmm.
And through that growth, I was his photographer. Every photo he posted on Instagram was out of my camera. So I experienced a really large amount of growth during that time. And once that was over, in 2018, I dove headfirst into the art world.
Okay.
I was done with the influencing, and I really wanted to start taking my work towards a more in-depth, meaningful aspect. I had things to
Right.
say, and my voice was through my photography.
Right.
So that's what's led to the images that my audience is familiar with now, and that's how I support myself, is entirely through fine art photography, which is,
Amazing. Big
yeah,
respect to
yeah,
you for being able to, one, follow your passion and do something that you love, but also make a living doing it.
yep,
That's a dream of everybody. So congrats
yep.
for doing that.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
talk about the series of the works from Beverly Hills in particular.
Mhm.
I want to talk about the woman walking in the rain
Yes.
down Rodeo. You
Yeah.
know, with the umbrella. That's a beautiful shot.
Oh yeah. That,
But
that
one, it
one gets
doesn't
a
rain
lot
very
of
often in
questions.
LA. So for you to, capture that, I
Yep.
think is one. It's rare that it rains, obviously, because I live there.
Yeah.
I'm not there at the moment, but tell me about that shot. How did that come about?
Definitely. So that's the one that people love asking about, because they're, how did you do this? How did you pull this off? And you're right. It is, for one, extremely rare to have that amount of rain. It's like a torrential downpour in that shot. And it had been raining. This was February of 2019. It was a very rainy month in Los Angeles. And it had been raining for like 2 weeks straight. And I was stuck
Hmm.
inside and I was not shooting, because I'm typically the sunny weather photographer, going to the beach, shooting at people's,
Yeah,
lavish pools and that style.
yeah.
And I was like, I need to create something with this rain. And
Hmm.
as I was driving down one of those streets in Beverly Hills one of those days, I stopped and I started taking like iPhone pictures, through my windshield of the raindrops and the palm trees. And I was like, there's something more to be done here. So I started hitting up different models that I know, explaining this idea of, a nude model walking down the middle of one of these palm tree lined streets. And I got rejected by, I think, 4 or 5 models
Yeah.
before this girl, Carrie, said, I'm down, let's do it. Um, so we chose the next day. I went and bought an umbrella because I didn't own one.
Yeah.
um, and we found a street that miraculously, I don't know if it was street sweeping or what was happening, but there were no cars parked on this street. Um, and when it downpours in Los Angeles, nobody goes outside. So we had a
Yeah.
very, very private experience shooting there. And it truly only took us about 10 minutes to get that shot, because we were trying to do it without getting the cops called on us.
Yeah. Of course.
Um, and, I think while we were there, I believe we had 2 cars drive past us, and Carrie would take the umbrella and like use it as a shield to block herself from the car um, that would
Yeah.
drive by. And it was interesting because there are probably 15 other shots that I took that day before that one.
Hmm.
And it was drizzling at that time. It was a light rain and it was fine. And the photos were looking okay. I was excited. And then this downpour started happening for, I want to say, 3 minutes. It really came down and it
Yeah.
creates this beautiful haze that you see in the photo,
Hmm.
and this much more sort of mysterious look to it. And that was the shot. Within those few minutes, that was the one that ended up being the one that everybody knows today. And we got done, hopped back in the car, dried off, and we're out of there before anybody was the wiser. And
So
yeah.
So going back to like childhood, what do you remember
Mhm.
that moment where it shifted in your mind? You're like, I really love photography and I need to express myself in this way.
Yeah. So I grew up in a very picturesque town in Massachusetts, Duxbury, Massachusetts. It's a beach town, and there's actually, I can draw it back to this one moment. Duxbury is the home of, I think this is correct, the longest wooden bridge in America. And it's very beautiful. It's really, really picturesque at
Mhm.
sunset. And it was always a thing among like the high school students, when Instagram started becoming a thing, was who can take the best picture on the bridge. And I took it personally. I was like, I can do this.
Yeah.
So one of these photos that I took on that bridge of
Mhm.
uh, my own arms, spread wide at sunset, and I was silhouetted against, this crazy orange sky. Uh, I remember posting that and getting like this huge response from classmates that had never acknowledged me before. Um, and I was like, wow, okay, photography could be the thing for me.
Yeah.
Um, and
That's
I,
amazing.
yeah, right back to one
So,
very specific moment.
so did you have, if you don't mind me asking, like, I mean, my family, they were like, hey, you should go into finance, you should go into law or whatever.
Oh
I
yeah,
ended up going to finance and then got out of it and got into art and doing what I'm doing. But did you have pressures from, talk about this as an inspiration for people that are struggling with,
yeah.
going down a route that, is the quote unquote normal
Hmm.
path and you took a more
Yeah,
difficult path, but it's, making you happy. So what did you go through, like from the peer pressure to family pressure?
for
Talk about
sure.
that a little bit.
Yeah, I actually see my sister just commented one of my favorite images talking about the beach or the bridge photo. Um, but we grew up with parents that are, um, more traditional in like their job. So my dad has been in corporate America for 30 years. Very safe. And it's always what he's known. And my mom is an English teacher, eighth grade English in my hometown. So two very, stable, very
Yeah,
safe jobs. And that's what they always wanted for my sister and I, was to, have a livelihood that, was stable. And
yeah,
that's what every parent wants for their children, right? Is to not have to worry about them, you know, making enough money to pay rent or whatever.
yeah,
And I went to school for something completely different. So there was, pressures from that world where, I spent all this money on school, on this degree that I'm not going to use. And that was,
right.
internal pressure as well in my own
Yeah,
head.
of
I'm
course.
like, am I wasting a degree? Like, uh, but on the other side, I know myself, and I know that I never would have been happy if I had stayed stayed in DC or stayed in Boston and hadn't
Mhm.
made this journey out to Los Angeles and pursued this. It would have always been that question of what if, you know, uh,
Yeah, of course.
and
Well, I loved. Yeah,
yeah, it worked out. It was a lot of work. It was a long, sort of, I think probably year and a half of wondering if I was going to run out of money, figuring things out, and then all at once it all came together and worked itself out.
probably about the time where you just let go and you're like, you know what, I can't fight it. I'm
Yep,
really doing what I want to do, and it's gonna happen when it happens, and
yep,
almost like a test that the universe is like putting on you.
definitely,
I
definitely.
find that it's a very common thread with pretty much any entrepreneur out there. So
Sure. Yeah.
go back to now. Let's talk more about some of the images.
Yeah.
What your would you say is your favorite image that you've shot? Or do
Uh,
you,
I think so. I had a series of photos that I call virtual summer. And I love for my photos to have their own voice. And I love making commentary on societal issues, current events, hot topics. That's what I take inspiration from, and sort of mold those events into a photograph, sort of to say what I want very succinctly. Um, and this series of photos called Virtual Summer, that I shot in the summer of 2019, um, is probably my favorite series of photos to date. And what I wanted to comment on is just how addicted we are to our technology, um, and how far will we go into it before we, lose touch with actual reality and just start living in these digital worlds.
Yeah.
And to do that, I used these 4 VR headsets on 4 models. Um, People think I photoshopped this image. I'll actually show you
Yeah.
a print of it right now.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I love this shot. Where was that, in the hills?
yes, so this is at a friend's house on Mulholland Drive,
Nice.
and it's looking over the valley. It's over Studio City there,
Hmm.
um, and
Incredible. Can
it's
you get
not
up closer?
photoshopped.
Can you get
Sorry.
up a little closer to it?
Yes, yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
so the image is not photoshopped. These are actually 4 individual models all lined up. I gave them
Very
each the
cool.
same wig, the same headset, and the same one-piece bathing suit that they have on.
Yeah.
It was a lot of direction because what was happening is that they couldn't see each other. They were in the dark for about an hour while we were putting this photo together. And when you're trying to direct people to match exactly and they
Hmm.
can't see what the other person is doing,
Yeah.
it's like a crazy amount of me like point your toe a little bit more, raise your glass 1 inch, like etc. Really, really trying to get them to match perfectly. And eventually we got there, and that image is it's one of my best selling, and it's one of my favorites.
No, it's amazing. I mean, there's so many other images that I like, and we could
Mm-hmm.
spend, a lot of
Yeah.
time. But I feel like um, the best thing for people to do is really to go to your website, check
Yes.
out, the images from your site,
Yep.
and I know that you're doing a lot of things and giving back as well. And right before this call, you were doing talk about that just briefly. You're just
Yeah.
helping people, you're mentoring people.
Exactly. Yeah. So I, have a privilege of being able to work with some of the best models in the world, some of the biggest brands, and even I myself have been mentored by some of the best photographers in the world. And I, at this point, feel like I have a lot to teach. And I have a very large audience that is interested in learning. So what I've started doing is offering these one-on-one FaceTime calls with uh, students, essentially, that want to learn how to become a photographer, how to take photography and turn it into a career. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking to people and telling them what I know about this world.
No, well, it's really impressive. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
I'd like to spend more time with you. I'm actually, like I said, in New York right now in between client meetings, but wanted
Uh,
to do the call with you, and I look forward to
yeah.
spending time with you and
Thank
more
you.
people get to know your work. And I know we're going to explore some things in LA
Yeah,
as well. So
definitely.
everybody stay
Maybe.
tuned for that.
Yeah, that's exciting. I haven't had a real chance to display a lot of my print images in real life. A lot of it, for me has always just been showing it off on social media, and I'm very excited to be able to start showing it to the real world.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to collaborate with you, and so
Mhm.
everybody stay tuned for that. And with that, I will end the call, but I'll post it on my IGTV so everybody can
Perfect.
watch it,
Great.
replay, and let's do another one of these soon.
I would
So
love to. Yeah.
stay warm there, or you're already warm. I'm
Yeah,
totally
we got the
a lot of
sunshine
snow.
over here.
We had snow here in New York City this morning, which is really beautiful to see, and actually I hadn't been here in over a year because of
Uh-huh.
COVID. So happy to be here, but I'll end the call now. But let's catch up soon. Thank you for taking
Awesome.
time today, Brendan.
Thank you, Kipton.
All right, thanks everybody.